Hello, everyone, and welcome to Volume Up. My name is Tess Cunningham. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am the director for today's segment of TC Squared Theatre Company's online virtual reading series. Today, we will be reading Bella's Choice by Judith Nies. In this segment, we find Bella Abzug, the historical New York Congresswoman who was running to be the first woman elected to the Senate in her own right, recalling a conversation she had with Tip O'Neill, a Massachusetts congressman and upcoming Speaker of the House, for whom Bella had worked as a deputy whip. In response to COVID-19, TC Squared had to make some major shifts to our programming to ensure that our actors, playwrights in the Play Lab, and directors are still able to work at this time. Volume Up virtual readings are 10-minute scenes from plays in development in our Play Lab that you would have seen and heard in person at our annual New Play Festival. Each session showcases a reading with the director and actors, followed by an interview with the playwright. Each playwright has given permission to show work in progress, and all value your feedback. We encourage you to provide your thoughts and reactions right below in the comments for each segment of the series. To find out more about TC Squared's ongoing programming, please visit our website at www.tcsquaredtheatrecompany.org. And now I'm going to ask the actors to introduce themselves and the characters they're playing.
I'm Amy Smith. I use she, her pronouns, and I'll be playing Bella Abzug.
And I'm John Porell. I use he, him pronouns, and I'll be playing Tip O'Neill.
Hi, I'm Judith Nies. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the playwright, which is based actually on experience I had working in Congress with both Bella Abzug and Tip O'Neill.
Where was I? Going to bed. Or waiting for Doug to call. I'll go to bed. Actually, the Irish and the Russians have similar temperaments. Dark, but resilient. There's a reason the Irish call the obituaries the Irish sports pages. It was Tip O'Neill who told me that. Mr. Speaker, I sent you congratulations on your election as Speaker. Did you get it?
I did, but it's not official until the next Congress. Listen, I said I'll support you in the Senate race, and I will, after you win the primary, but I still wish you hadn't given up your House seat. I hate to lose an asset. You'll be missed.
Thank you. Maybe no one will notice.
Oh, I think so. We don't have many people who can be so eloquent when they're angry. You do understand that when I made you a deputy whip, it put you in line for leadership.
I do, and believe me, I'm grateful. But there are no women in the Senate. Someone has to go first.
Well, here's how I see it. You're only 56. You can have that Upper West Side district forever. If you stay in the House, you'll become chair of a major committee. I'll see to that. With your behind-the-scenes skills and your skill as a parliamentarian, you'll rise in the leadership.
I'm sorry. It's too late. I've given up the seat. Have you been talking to Doug? You and he have the same idea.
Well, that's part of what I wanted to tell you. We're figuring out how we could get the guy who's running for your old seat to drop out, just in case you don't carry the primary. A backup plan. Because I think you made a big mistake in saying you wouldn't support Moynihan if he wins the primary.
What I said was that I wouldn't campaign for a man who worked 6 years in the Nixon White House attacking the anti-war left and African Americans. A man who wrote that racist report on African Americans. Ford appointed him ambassador to the United Nations. He's only worked for Republicans.
Well, that's the same as saying you are not going to support the choice of Democratic voters. Not a good stance. On the other hand, Moynihan's campaign makes me nervous. Moynihan makes a big deal about the role of women and how his wife and daughter are out front running his campaign. But behind the scenes, he's got some high-powered Republicans.
Like,
Len Garment for once. Len Garment for once.
Nixon's lawyer?
The same. And Richard Ravitch doing the finances. He's also in deep with the Scoop Jackson Dems, the pro-Israeli wing of the Democratic Party.
No criticism of Israel's foreign policy allowed.
Apparently you've spoken up for Palestinian human rights. And butter.
Butter?
You know, as in guns and butter. You speak out for butter. Women's rights, civil rights, gay rights, against military spending, like the child care bill that you and Shirley Chisholm worked so hard on. But it's mainly in foreign affairs that Moynihan is talking you down. Conservative Jews want more and more military aid for Israel.
What I said about Israel is that more and more guns are not the long-term solution to Israel's foreign policy. They need to find a way to negotiate with the Palestinians.
And there's a lot of conservative money behind the people who are backing Jimmy Carter for the presidency. I know the polls have you in the lead, but Senate seats are hard for people like us.
People like us? What does that mean?
People think I'm successor to Jack Kennedy because I was elected to the same House seat he held, but we were raised on different planets. He went to Harvard, dated starlets, cruised on sailboats in the summer. I, on the other hand, was cutting the lawns at Harvard in the summer. I look up to see those boys in their white linen suits drinking champagne. If anyone took a picture, you'd see me on the grass on my knees, trimming edges, and there's Jack in his white linen suit raising a glass. During Prohibition, mind you.
Probably his father provided the champagne.
It's the boys in the white linen suits who get to the Senate. Most senators have inherited wealth. They're not first-generation people. My relatives worked in the brickyards in North Cambridge. My father was supervisor of sewers. I was driving a truck for a construction company after high school. It was the Depression. No jobs, no money.
Well, I know about that. My father ran a butcher shop down on 9th Avenue. Called it the Live and Let Live butcher shop. Showed his pacifist beliefs. Said there was never a good war or a bad peace. He went bankrupt during the Depression. Hunter had free tuition. Otherwise, I would have had trouble getting to college. How about you?
Sister Agatha from my high school. One day she saw me in my construction truck parked on the street near St. John's Church. Thomas O'Neill, what are you doing with yourself? Why are you sitting in that truck? Why don't you make something of yourself? I tell her there aren't many jobs in college is out of the question. Why is that, Tom? She asks. Because of money and my complete lack of preparation. Go see the Jesuits at Boston College High School, she says, and they'll help get yourself into Boston College. So I did. They made me take a year of French and Latin and remedial college prep. I did get into Boston College. Tuition was $225 a year. Ran my first campaign for city council while I was still in college. Later, a Boston reporter asked Sister Agatha what I was like as a student. Well, you know, Tom wasn't much of a student, but he could talk you deaf, dumb, and blind.
Sometimes on Saturday, I went down to 9th Avenue with my sister Helene to help at the butcher shop. She was 5 years older, so she got to work the cash register. I got to walk up and down 9th Avenue selling shopping bags for pennies. My father said I could talk to anybody. But the butcher shop failed. My father gave customers too much credit, and they couldn't pay their bills. Did you win that election for Cambridge City Council?
No, but I learned. Never lost another election. I next ran for state rep. That's been one of your difficulties, you know. Most congressmen and women, they start out in state legislatures and learn the ropes. You started out on a national stage. Too much press is not good. So, what happened after the butcher shop folded?
My father found work as a bookkeeper, and then he sold insurance, and then he died. I was 13.
Well, in case you haven't followed my meaning here, most people with a chair in the Senate don't have a background of working construction or experience in a butcher shop. They inherit some money and go to prestige colleges. A lot of them are dumb as posts, but they know how to build a resume. The only easy Senate win I ever heard of was Harry Truman's.
As in President Truman?
Well, you know, when Harry was a judge in Missouri, he was having money trouble. His uncle was Tom Pendergast, the political boss of Kansas City. So Harry asked Tom to make him a county assessor because it paid more money. Pendergast said, "Harry, you're not smart enough to be county assessor. I'm going to send you to Washington and make you a senator instead."
Are you trying to remind me I don't have a Tom Pendergast in my corner?
Well, I know you've got Pamela Harriman doing fundraisers for you. And Moynihan worked for Governor Harriman, her husband, for 6 years. That says a lot who they think would be the better senator. I'm sure you got this primary wrapped up. As I said, I'll campaign for you in this general election. Well, just the other day, I heard Eddie Hebert, Mr. Military Industrial Complex himself, call you the most brilliant member of Congress. One other thing. Phil Burton is going to be running for majority leader before Congress recesses in December. I hope you'll be sure to be back after the primary to help corral votes for the Burton alternative.
Of course. Ideologically, we should be allies. But he froze me out of his little group of liberals, just like the men in the Black Caucus who refused to give Shirley any support when she ran for president.
I hope when you're in the Senate, you won't be too grand to come back to the Capitol Hill Weight Watchers meetings.
Oh, I gave that up. Are you still going?
Not after the leader told me that scotch isn't on the diet.
I'll miss you too.
Thank you, everyone. That was a wonderful reading. I'm going to ask at this time that our actors and playwright go ahead and come back on screen. All right, we'll have just a little bit of a talk back. That was a wonderful job, everybody. Thank you so much for all of the work that you have put into this. Judith, I was wondering if you could give us some insight into your experience with the TC Squared Play Lab and what that experience has been like for you and how it has helped shape your writing.
As you mentioned at some point in discussing this, you said it really plays well. Well, without the Play Lab, I would have had no experience of hearing people read these parts, the rhythm of the dialogue, where it goes on for too long, if it does what I wanted it to do. So it was invaluable in developing the script, and I think the two actors did a wonderful, wonderful job. The other thing I would say is I was so interested in trying to develop this story of Bella Abzug because I think most people have no idea how difficult it is for women in politics, about how institutionally they are frozen out. And when Bella Abzug ran the first time in 1970, there were 12 women in Congress, and the one who was from Michigan, very brilliant lawyer, was given the chairmanship of the House Beauty Committee. And so when she left in 1976, there were, I think, 16 or more women in Congress, but it was a very limited sense of how effective women could be politically. So I felt if I could somehow portray what her experience had been, it would be it's a political history play. And there's something I want to, and I felt Amy was wonderful in portraying her warmth and her sense of humor and her charm, qualities that never made its way into the press. You know, she was always described as battling Bella, kind of a battle axe, loud, pushy, but she was a really skillful inside player with a lot of charm, and she could, and that's why she became deputy whip. Tip O'Neill understood talent, so when he saw that this woman could talk to anybody and kept track of all the legislation and worked harder than anyone, he understood he had a real talent, and he helped to bring her along. So I felt that was a great, as you would say, it really played between the two of them.
And Amy and John, as Judith said, you did do an incredible job with this. Do you have any remarks either for Judith or about your experience of getting to know these characters and to understand their history?
It's been fun to dig deeper into the historical Bella and the character that I imagine her having. And yeah, I appreciate, Judith, the words on the page revealing aspects of her that I certainly didn't know about just from my casual knowledge of her. I appreciate too the kind of like double, the drumbeat of sexism and the drumbeat of classism that are both affecting her life, and her, you know, this scene is about her kind of bonding further with Tip O'Neill about their shared experiences as coming from working class backgrounds, but he also obviously has a lot of power and influence as a man in Washington. And yeah, it was fun to kind of like dig into all of those dynamics just in this one scene.
Right. I like, as you, Judith, are explaining a little bit more of the background, it's nice the way that Tip, whether or not, I think he does believe it to an extent that, you know, it's time for a change, but he puts, he you know, the use of the story about his background, he really does put her on the same level as he. I think that's a nice tactic. Whether or not he's doing it just sort of strategically to buck her up or actually believes it, but he does, you know, that's the story of the, I'll keep forgetting his name, but Hebert, when he shares that guy has called her the most brilliant member of Congress. I mean, that's a huge, I'm taking that to mean that that's a huge compliment, which he shares. So it's nice. He's not talking down to her so much, it seemed to me, as basically just strategizing with an equal.
And Judith, would you be able to let us know what your hope is for a modern audience to take away from hearing this piece?
I just add to what John just said, that she was voted in a poll that was done by US News and World Report one of the three most influential members of Congress. So she had made a big reputation, and she was by then a national figure. And so that was what gave her a platform to be running for the US Senate. I think that what I would hope, and if I might refer to this television series that's on now about Phyllis Schlafly Kate Blanchett playing Phyllis Schlafly, that the shape that a political figure gets in the media is very different from who they are. And not many people get behind the scenes. When there were women, the three or four who announced that they were going to run for president in this past election, I felt many people would have been better served if they had a better historical background about how women got fed into politics, treated once they got there, and how institutional power works. So I hoped that in this play, I could do that using this election from 1976. She ended up having a big career. And the end of the play is that she was, her funeral service was at the United Nations. She's the only American who has ever been allowed to use the UN General and Kofi Annan was the host for the service. But she was a very big figure historically that most people don't know about. So that was my goal. That was my hope, that a larger audience would get to see this.
Well, thank you so much for writing this incredible piece and for sharing it with us. And thank you, Amy and John, for bringing it to life so beautifully. And thank you all so much for joining us today. And of course, a big thank you to TC Squared for allowing us all to come together to continue doing what we love. If you liked what you saw, please be sure to like this video and leave a comment for us below. Thank you so much for tuning in. Your support is appreciated as always. And of course, we hope to see you at the next reading.